It began as an investigation into Benghazi, but this week it has morphed into something bigger. Hillary Clinton was forced to turn her private email server over to the FBI amid revelations at least 2 of the emails in her private account contained top-secret information. In the latest Fox News poll, 58% of registered voters think Clinton knowingly lied when she said last March there was no classified information on her private server. Joining us now to discuss his investigation is Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy, chair of the House Benghazi Committee. Congressman, what do you think is the significance of the developments this week? First, the fact that Clinton had to turn her private server over to the FBI, and also the revelation that at least 2 of the emails on that private server had top-secret information.
Well, Chris, I think it validates what we initially asked her to do in March, which is to turn her server over to a neutral, detached, independent arbiter. We suggested the Inspector General or a retired federal judge, once it was determined that classified, in fact, more than classified, compartmented information was on that server, the FBI then had jurisdiction. So I wish she had done this in March. We would be further down the road, but she swore she would never turn the server over again, and I guess she didn't. It was taken. It wasn't turned over. It was taken.
Well, you talk about wanting a neutral, detached observer, and one of the questions I have for you is whether or not the FBI, in your mind, fits that bill. How much confidence do you have that the FBI, which is part of the Obama Justice Department, will conduct a thorough investigation, one, into whether Clinton mishandled classified information, and secondly, whether she turned over all of her work emails to the State Department, or whether perhaps that she deleted, destroyed, scrubbed some of those emails?
Well, I'm 100% confident in the first, and I'll tell you why, Chris. From 1994 to 2000, I worked for the Department of Justice under a president named Clinton. And I don't think I knew the political ideation of a single FBI agent. So I think they're the premier law enforcement agency in the world. I think that they are as apolitical as anything can be in this culture, and I think they're going to go wherever the facts take them. But that's with respect to classified information. The completeness or the wholeness of the record, I frankly don't think that's what the Bureau was looking into. That's what the Inspector General wanted to look into. And when the Bureau was through with the server, I hope they will turn that server over to the Inspector General so they can determine whether or not the record is full and complete.
Well, that raises the question, what if it turns out, and this is actually what Clinton and her lawyer have said, the server has been scrubbed clean, and any of those 30,000 emails that she destroyed that she said were about yoga lessons and Chelsea's wedding, what if they're not available? What does that tell you?
Well, I'll tell you what it tells you, Chris. I don't know whether you do yoga or not. I don't, so I don't have any yoga emails. But the greater steps that you take, clean something or delete something, that's a higher level of concealment. That's a higher level of consciousness of concealment. So your viewers have to ask themselves, to what lengths would they go to delete a yoga email? Would they call in forensic experts to triple wash a server so they could get rid of bridesmaids emails or yoga practice emails? Of course not. We hit the delete button and we forget about it. So the more energy she put into cleansing or wiping this server clean, I think your viewers should take or infer from that perhaps there was something on there she really didn't want us to see.
Congressman, I want to ask you a question that when I told folks that you were going to be on the show, they've asked me. Why is all of this your business? What does this have to do with investigating what happened around Benghazi?
Well, probably not much of anything. It was just us that determined this unique email arrangement she had with herself. We have interviewed 36 witnesses. Not a single one of them is named Clinton. In fact, while I'm happy to be on your show, had she not had this email arrangement with herself, you wouldn't be talking to me this morning. So my focus is on the 4 murdered Americans in Benghazi. But before I can write the final definitive accounting of that, I have to make sure that the public record is complete. So all of this started with my desire to get her emails and the emails of her top aides. That's when we learned she had this unprecedented email arrangement with herself, and thanks to, frankly, some folks in your line of work who did some good journalistic investigation, and thanks in part, I guess, to my colleagues on the committee, we have determined that there's a lot more to her email story than just the completeness of the record. In terms of what I'm interested in, it is doing a good job for those 4 murdered Americans and their families. The classified information, the rest of it is in other people's jurisdiction, and I'm content with that.
Now, and you know this, Clinton says this is all politics, Republicans like yourself trying to hurt her presidential campaign. Here she is in Iowa this week.
I won't get down in the mud with them. I won't play politics with national security or dishonor the memory of those who we lost. I won't pretend that this is anything other than what it is, the same old partisan games we've seen so many times before.
Congressman Gowdy, same old partisan games?
Well, the Inspector General isn't partisan, neither one of them. In fact, they were nominated by President Obama and confirmed by Harry Reid-led Senate. The FBI is not partisan. I get that she's frustrated. Her poll numbers are tanking. Folks who never thought about getting into the race are getting in the race. But she need not blame House Republicans for having her own personal server, for exclusively using private email, for telling us the Sidney Blumenthal emails were unsolicited, and then we later find out that they were not, for telling us there was no classified information, then we later find out that there was, for telling us the public record was complete, and then we find 15 emails she never turned over to the State Department. I get that she's frustrated. Sometimes when people are frustrated, they look in the mirror and they engage in a little bit of self-reflection, and sometimes they lash out and blame non-existent right-wing conspiracies, and apparently she's chosen to do the latter.
Yeah, but let me ask you about the non-existent right-wing conspiracy. I want to show a clip from a video that House Speaker John Boehner, Republican House Speaker John Boehner, put out this week about your investigation.
If Hillary Clinton wants the Benghazi committee to finish their work, she could help them by turning over all of her emails sooner rather than later.
But we're not going away until we get it because it's really important.
Congressman Gowdy, I got to say, it sure looks like a negative campaign commercial.
Well, I haven't seen it. I can tell you this, Chris. We have interviewed 36 witnesses. Not a single one of them has been named Clinton. She hasn't been called before the committee yet. Once she comes before the committee, I suspect people's interest in talking to me is going to dissipate down to being non-existent. We've gotten tens of thousands of pages from other executive branch entities that no other committee of Congress has gotten. So, again, I would just tell you this. Had it not been for this unusual email arrangement that she had with herself, you and I would not be talking this morning. You don't know the name of a single other person we've interviewed as a part of our committee. You haven't seen any of the documents that we've acquired from the executive branch entities. We're trying to run this investigation the way that serious investigations are run. But lo and behold, we find something that all 7 of those other committees that she claims looked into Benghazi never found. So we're going to follow the facts wherever they go, and if that impacts people's perception of her fitness to be commander-in-chief, so be it. I can just tell you this. For the first 3 public hearings, I never mentioned her name.
Well, let me ask you about this, because Clinton's lawyer says that she will testify before your committee on October 22nd, and I'm a little confused. Have you agreed to that date, and have you and the Clinton team agreed on the ground rules for that testimony?
We have agreed on the date, and the ground rules are simple. You're going to stay there until all of the questions are asked and answered with respect to Benghazi and Libya. And part of that is ensuring that the public record is whole and complete, which means we necessarily have to discuss your unusual email practices. But we're going to stay there until all of the questions. If she's going to insist, Chris, that she's only coming once, I'm going to insist that once be fully constructive, which is going to be there for a while.
I understand, and you've made it clear that the mishandling of the classified information is not part of the jurisdiction of your committee. But I want to ask you about something very interesting that Secretary of State John Kerry said this week. Take a look.
Do you think the Chinese and/or the Russians are reading your emails?
The answer is it is very likely. It is not without, outside the realm of possibility.
Question, Congressman, when the Inspector General for the Intelligence Committee says that on these private emails was information that came from satellite intercepts, imagery, or electronic surveillance, and you've got John Kerry saying it's very likely that foreign powers are reading his emails. Does that raise the stakes here?
Absolutely. It was one of the most reckless decisions that have been made in public service in a long time. And the notion that she did this for convenience, I would just ask you, Chris, convenient for whom? Because it sure as hell hasn't turned out to be convenient for the American people or for our intelligence apparatus. It may have been convenient for her, but it hasn't been convenient for anyone else. I don't know who's accessed her email. I know that members of Congress have not, but I don't know who has.
Finally, as we have mentioned, Clinton's position in all this has evolved. First, she said that there was no classified information. Then she said there was no information that was classified at the time. Now she says there was no information that had been marked as classified at the time. And I know the State Department is checking into whether or not any aides, officials, advisors may have changed the marking on some of those to remove the classified designation. What do you think of the chances that one of her aides will take the fall for this and that will get Hillary Clinton off the hook?
Well, I don't know about getting someone off the hook. If you're talking about criminal exposure, I would leave that up to the Bureau. If you're talking about the court of public opinion, I don't think it ever works when the person in charge blames those under him or her. It's never worked in any position I've ever been in life. She's the Secretary of State. She's the top diplomat for the country, and either she knew or should have known what was being sent to her. So the notion that somebody under you is going to take the fall, metaphorically speaking, I think my fellow citizens would reject that. She wanted to be the Secretary of State. In fact, now she's auditioning for a job even more important than that. With that comes responsibility. And I think my fellow citizens, if that proves to be correct, that classified information was mishandled, I think they will apportion the culpability appropriately.
Chairman Gowdy, thank you. Thanks for coming in today. We'll stay on top of this story.
Yes, sir. Thank you.